Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's the day after Father's Day. I hope you had a good one, a good Father's Day, and I hope you also have a good Monday. And there's never any shortage of goings on with Arkansas men's Razorbacks basketball. Um, whether it's adding players to the current roster, recruiting for the future, schedule stuff. I mean, even though we're in the off season, there's still plenty to talk about, and we try to come on and do that every day. We took a day off for Father's Day. We were on, I think, pretty much daily through the week, and we'll see where it goes this week. But we're certainly on to tip the week off anyway. So thanks for being here. Pooh Bear, good morning. Happy Monday. Kevin, happy Monday. And again, really what we're going to focus on today, a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about this non-conference schedule as we got another game opponent drop from John Calipari at one of his satellite camps. This was the father-son camp over the weekend, where he now gave out some more details about the upcoming schedule in the non-conference, which at this point is shaping up to be one of the best in school history, arguably the best. I'm going to compare it to another non-conference schedule back in the past. We're going to go back. For some of you old heads, you're going to remember this. For the younger ones, pay attention because you're going to learn something because it's really cool. But look, it's been 30 years since Arkansas has had a non-conference schedule that's shaping up like this one is. We're also going to talk just briefly at the end a little bit about some class of 2026, 2027 recruiting updates as it relates to Arkansas. So once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Once again, I am your host, Kevin McPherson. Let's get into this non-conference schedule. On the weekend, Calipari announced to his group of campers and their parents that Arkansas will play at Michigan State, a road game with one of the Big Ten powerhouses. In fact, it'll be the defending Big Ten champion from the regular season from a year ago. And Arkansas, again, not a date given by Calipari, kind of speaking off the cuff here, but just the fact that Arkansas will have a road game in non-conference play against Michigan State. And that Michigan State will return and play in Fayetteville a year later. So that, then would be year three under Calipari. But in this 2025-26 upcoming season, we're really starting to see some things take shape because now we know about nearly half of the 13 non-conference opponents. There will also be a game in Dallas. Again, according to Calipari, did not name the opponent, but there's expected to be another game in Dallas, which will mean back-to-back seasons that Arkansas will have played both in Dallas in non-conference play as well as New York City. We already know about the Houston game, so let's just go through from the top what this looks like in terms of what we know about Arkansas's non-conference schedule. It was right here on this program that we broke the news to you that Arkansas would host in-state Division I University of Central Arkansas, also known as UCA. That game is slated for November 11th. My reporting has been that the final contract had not been signed, so we always give the disclaimer. Things could change, whether it means the game doesn't happen at all or the date changes, something like that. When we did the same reporting last year on 3 different games, we gave the same disclaimer, and each one of those games ended up on the schedule and played on the dates we said they would. So we expect UCA and Fayetteville, that game to be November 11th. That'll be early in your non-conference schedule. We also know that Arkansas is expected to have a home game against Baylor. Remember, Arkansas played the Bears last year in Dallas, early in non-conference play, early November. So we'll see what date shakes out for that. Calipari has talked about this in front of fans, Arkansas fans, when he was doing the One Razorback Roadshow events. We have not seen anything announced publicly about that. And he referred to it as we'll play Baylor here. So what does that exactly mean? Does that mean in Fayetteville? Does it mean here? Because when I heard him, when he said it at the Little Rock Roadshow, the Little Rock event, Arkansas plays in one annual game in North Little Rock, Central Arkansas. I think most think that the Baylor game will be played in Fayetteville, but let's see what officially comes out on that. Then on November 27th, we've also got a date for the Duke game in Chicago, Thanksgiving Day. We've known about that one longer than any of these games. But again, just as a reminder, that's one of the dates we know. We just learned of a date about a week later from that game against Duke. It'll be December 3rd against Louisville at home in the third annual ACC SEC Challenge. And then Calipari the prior week told one of his satellite camp groups, I think it was the father-daughter camp, he spoke to the group and said that Arkansas is going to play Houston in New York City. And then a day later, we found out that that game will be played on December 20th. So late in December, late in your non-conference schedule, could end up being your last non-conference game before SEC play. But Houston in Brooklyn is what we found out also, not only December 20th, but it'll be played at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, which is New York City. And so now we've learned about this Michigan State road game. So let's sweep back through a few things here. Baylor, just going off John Rothstein's he updated it yesterday. So his updated top 45 rankings for the college season, he has Houston ranked second preseason. He has Duke ranked 9th. He has Louisville ranked 17th. And he has Michigan State ranked 21st. Now, Michigan State lost some of its key players, including Jace Richardson, who left school early and declared for the draft. Looks like he's going to be a first-round pick. But Michigan State's still going to be highly regarded, still has a good squad like they always do under Hall of Fame coach Tom Izzo. And this is also interesting because we know Calipari went head-to-head in the NCAA tournament, first and second rounds just a few months ago in March against Bill Self in Kansas and then Rick Pitino in St. John's. Well, this will be another Hall of Fame v. Hall of Fame matchup when you look at the coaches. We know Michigan State's been, knocking on the door of blue blood status under Izzo, going back to when they won a title. I think it's his only title. They've had a lot of Final Fours, but they won a title in 2000, and they beat, with Mateen Cleaves, their star guard, knocked off Florida. Was Florida's first appearance in a championship game. The Gators have since won 3 titles, but that was all the way back in 2000. And then since then, again, Michigan State's been arguably the top standard consistently since 2000 in the Big Ten. And again, the defending Big Ten regular season champion coming into this upcoming season and should be preseason ranked by the AP and coaches poll, that sort of thing. But we're way away from seeing what those rankings are. So for now, we're going to use Rothstein's top 45. So just going through that and mentioning those teams that are ranked, that's 4 teams in your non-conference schedule. And Baylor is another high major. So you have 5 high majors as it stands right now on your schedule in non-conference. And you got to think the game in Dallas is going to be against a 6th high major school. We've reported on here before that we've heard that, they're looking at playing a team from the East Coast, potentially the Big East Conference. The door's left open to play, obviously, other opponents. It doesn't have to be, necessarily a school on the East Coast, although we think that's probably where that's headed. Who knows? But it looks like you're going to add a 6th, again, high major. There'll be, through the schools we just mentioned, Cal versus Izzo is must see. I agree with that, Hog fan. I agree with that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I counting this right? See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 known opponents out of a 13 non-conference slate. A 7th game again in Dallas, which should be by then add a 6th high major. You're going to have a lot of mid-major schools that we learn about later, and people are going to be, oh, who cares? But you got to have those games as well in non-conference. You can't brutalize yourself. With the SEC as good as it is, you're going to have plenty of opportunities. And, we've already talked about the fact that including Florida and Auburn, when you add that to Duke and Houston, you're going to play the entire Final Four from last year. A couple of those games obviously being against SEC opponents. The SEC matchups could be dropped any day now. Maybe they're dropped later today. And then we find out how many times you're playing teams, where you're playing them. It'll be an 18-game league schedule. But shortly we should learn that as well. And then we'll continue to have some of these non-conference games leaked out to us, hopefully. But we're almost 10 minutes in. Once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. So the question is this the toughest non-conference schedule in school history? I mean, you can make an argument that regardless of how Arkansas finishes up, adding to the schedule, and we didn't say enough about Baylor, one of the standards in the Big 12 and one of the top programs in the country in the last handful of years. But coming into the season, I mean, Rothstein right now has them ranked 45th, so it's maybe going to be a team that when polls come out aren't initially ranked. We don't know how soon Arkansas will play Baylor. We're not sure how good Baylor's going to be. But just knowing that that's been a powerful high major, along with four other teams we just mentioned, will likely have preseason rankings, and at least a couple of those probably top 10. You can make a case, well, when was the last time you remember Arkansas putting together a non-conference schedule that was that tough, that looked that good on paper, and represented, what will be one of the top most talked about non-conference schedules in the country? It certainly will be. And many of these games are those made for TV, Calipari, sweetheart matchups that are going to be, it's going to get a lot of attention. They'll get a lot of attention. They'll be talked about quite a bit. So that all remains true. Having said that, I go back 31 years ago. This is the toughest non-conference schedule in program history, in my opinion. I was covering this Razorbacks team as a media credentialed reporter, beat writer for the 94-95, what ended up being the national runners-up a year after winning the national championship. And back then, the media press row was courtside. So you got to sit courtside. Now it's up in a corner in Bud Walton Arena, multiple rows of media seating, 5 or 6 different rows of it, and you're quite a way off the court in kind of one of the corners. If you want to, it's an oval shape, but it's a bowl shape, but it's still, kind of in a section there, caddy corner to one of the baselines above. But back in the day, we had courtside media seating, and so I was courtside for a lot of big matchups in Fayetteville. But that non-conference schedule is the best in school history. I'm going to go through some of that. And as of now, just looking at what Calipari and Arkansas have put together, knowing we're going to see at least a 6 high major likely for the Dallas appearance, I still don't think this one will quite lives up to the one in 31 years ago in the 94-95 season. But we'll see how things play out once the games are actually played, how teams are ranked and what they mean and what the teams end up doing later. Because I'm going to run through what Arkansas faced in 94-95. Arkansas opened the season in late November on the road in Springfield, Massachusetts to play preseason third-ranked UMass, coached by John Calipari. When John Calipari first took this job, I was asking him questions when he was brought in to talk to the media when he was first hired at Arkansas. And we were asking questions. I remember I asked him the very first question he ever fielded as Arkansas's head coach. But one of the things he did, he likes to push back to the media and ask us questions to answer for him. And he looked right at me and he said, well, we played, talking about matching up with Nolan's top teams up at that time. And he goes, and we played him. And he looked at me and he says, what happened? I'm like, well, you took him behind the woodshed. And that's true. Arkansas opened up as the defending national champion late November, lost 104-80 in Springfield, Mass, effectively a home game for UMass. UMass plays in Amherst, but Springfield, Mass, it was the tip-off classic, so it was the first game to open up the college season, or that's what it was presented as, but a 24-point beatdown, and Arkansas was ranked number 1. They returned almost everybody important off that national championship team. The only players they really lost were Roger Crawford, who was mostly off the bench in your second rotation, your second unit. He graduated after that title run. And Ken Biley, who was a senior and started in the title game. He really wasn't in Arkansas's rotation that championship season, but a Pine Bluff native. So Arkansas had everybody else back, but lost by 24 points on a Friday night and just ran into a buzzsaw. That UMass team, Calipari was his first great team, a team that would eventually make it to an Elite Eight. This Arkansas team, again, would get back to the title game and lose to UCLA. UMass would play its way to the Elite Eight, but UMass had guys like Marcus Camby, Lou Rowe, Donta Bright, Dana Dingle, Edgar Padilla, Derek Kellogg in the backcourt. I mean, it was a loaded team. I'll never forget how good that team was and how great they looked that night, whipping Arkansas. 2 days later, that was a Friday night. 2 days later, Arkansas was in Memphis and played number 14 Georgetown and picked up an 97-79 win. So playing Georgetown in a neutral site, Allen Iverson, future Hall of Fame player, and one of the biggest names even as a freshman in college basketball. He was a freshman, so just starting his college career. And Arkansas with the 18-point beatdown against 14th ranked Georgetown in Memphis. So you played the number 3 ranked team, the 14th ranked team, and you're still in November. Arkansas then played Missouri on the road. Missouri, this was 94-95, so I don't think the Big 8 had expanded to the Big 12 yet. I could be wrong about that. Either way, Missouri was a member of the Big 8 or the Big 12, and it was a road win for Arkansas, 94-71. So that was a big win. This will be one that people will sleep on and say, why are you bringing up Tulsa? Arkansas defeated Tulsa 82-63 in Fayetteville after beating Missouri. This was a Tulsa team that during the previous season when under Tubby Smith, when Arkansas ran all the way to the championship, I was at these games. I covered these games in Dallas at Reunion Arena. Tulsa in the Sweet 16, Arkansas, ripped the roof off and beat them down, and then beat the Fab Four, what was left of the Fab Five, Michigan, in the Elite Eight game to move on to the Final Four. But Arkansas defeated Tulsa in the Sweet 16. Arkansas had also played on the road against Tulsa in non-conference play during the championship season, 93-94, and it was a Corliss Williamson late bucket. Arkansas was down a point in the closing seconds. Arkansas had to have a Corliss Williamson bucket around the basket to pull that one out on the road. So Arkansas went 2-0 against Tulsa. Fast forward back to this 94-95 season, which I say is the greatest non-con schedule ever. Arkansas blows Tulsa out in Fayetteville, but this is a Tulsa team that would go back to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament the same season. So back-to-back Sweet 16s under Tubby Smith. And we know Tubby Smith eventually, a few years later, 2 or 3 years later, would replace Rick Pitino at Kentucky and then lead Kentucky to a national title. So that Tulsa team, it's important to understand how tough this non-conference schedule was, because this was not a ranked team as a mid-major, but it was one of the best teams in the country. And it had been the year before and was once again. Once again, it would end up being a Sweet 16 team. So already you've got 4 games. Then Arkansas goes to Honolulu, Hawaii to play in the Rainbow Classic. And Arkansas played 3 high majors over there, had to come from behind in each one of these games. So they were nail biters, and Arkansas wasn't playing its best basketball. And then they seemed to flip a switch in the final 10 minutes of games and really turn things around. But Arkansas beats Oklahoma 86-84 in round 1. 20th ranked Cincinnati in the semifinals. Another comeback win, 84-75. And then Arkansas beats an Iowa team in the title game, an Iowa team that had been ranked prior to the Rainbow Classic and had been ranked sometime after it. But when Arkansas and Iowa played, Iowa was not ranked at the time out of the Big Ten, and Arkansas won that game 101-92 to win the Rainbow Classic. But it was a loaded field, and those were 3 big games on back-to-back-to-back days, just monster games. And so you've already played UMass, Georgetown, away from home, at Missouri, Tulsa, a tough opponent, and then you're away from home again in the Rainbow Classic neutral site, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Iowa. And just for fun, this is back when you would often see an opponent that you would play in the middle or late in conference play. And Arkansas was in the SEC, but Arkansas hosted Memphis in February. So Arkansas had played the bulk of its conference games and hosted Memphis in a non-conference game in February. And this was a Memphis team that was loaded. For whatever reason, it wasn't ranked, but it was a loaded Memphis squad. It had 3 future NBA players, David Vaughn, Lorenzen Wright, and Cedric Henderson. And so Memphis just had talent, as did Arkansas. But Memphis, it was another game. I was there covering that game. I was courtside. ESPN was there to televise it, and Dick Vitale was there to do the color. And that was the night I met Dick Vitale, and we had a nice conversation courtside on Media Row. We talked for a while pregame. But Arkansas ends up coming back. Little used Elmer Martin, who was one of that from that group of Memphis players, Memphis Fairleigh, Corey Beck, Dwight Stewart, who were part of this team. They were starters. Elmer Martin was kind of at the back end of that two deep. Actually, you might even say he was 11th or 12th man, but nothing was working for Arkansas. Memphis controlled the game for the most part. Nolan Richardson says, all right, I'm going to put Elmer Martin in. Elmer Martin started making plays. Arkansas flipped the switch. Arkansas ended up winning 88-87 in Fayetteville. And Arkansas would see Memphis again in the Sweet 16, and that was a similar script. Memphis dominate, up double digits late in the game. Arkansas makes a furious comeback. Corliss Williamson takes over. Arkansas ends up beating Memphis in overtime in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. This same Memphis team. Tulsa gets to the Sweet 16. UMass makes it to an Elite Eight. Georgetown was an NCAA tournament team. Cincinnati was an NCAA. I mean, this was a loaded non-conference. I just went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 non-conference opponents that were big time. So Arkansas right now is at 5 high majors in this current non-conference. Probably going to add a 6 in Dallas. But at the end of the day, they got their work cut out for them to match the quality of that 94-95 team and the gauntlet that team went through. That Arkansas team went 32-7. And I went through all those tough games, all 8 of them. One loss in that non-conference run. And that was to UMass in the season opener. So as much as Arkansas was a struggle bus within some of these games, some of them they blew out, like Georgetown, Missouri, and Tulsa. But those last 4 I mentioned, all Rainbow Classic opponents, Memphis, those were tough ones where Arkansas had to figure it out on the fly. Sometimes when you've got that target on you, it's tough. All right, 22 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on Hogville YouTube Live. It was the same season, by the way, in the SEC where Arkansas played Kentucky, hosted Kentucky in Bud Walton Arena on Super Bowl Sunday. And that was a classic. It was a Scotty Thurman pull-up 20-footer in the closing seconds to give Arkansas a 94-92 win in Fayetteville. Arkansas would play Kentucky again. It was only once. It was a home game during the regular conference season. Played Kentucky. I believe it was the SEC tournament title game. That game went to overtime. Arkansas had like a late 8 or 10 point lead, and somehow found a way to lose that game 95-93 in the SEC tournament. Arkansas and so Kentucky was ranked 3rd when the teams, Kentucky was ranked 5th when the teams played in Fayetteville. They were ranked 3rd when the teams met later in the SEC tournament. Arkansas also played a ranked Alabama team. Bama was ranked 18th one of the times Arkansas played the Crimson Tide, and then 20th the next time. But they ended up playing a total of 3 times, including the SEC tournament, and Arkansas went 2-1 in those matchups and beating Alabama both times when Alabama was actually ranked 18th or 20th. And one of those, again, was the SEC tournament. And then when you look at Arkansas's NCAA tournament run, they played 25th ranked Syracuse, and that was another comeback win and, drama at the end of that game in Austin, Texas to get it to overtime. And so 25th ranked Syracuse. I mentioned the Memphis win, even though Memphis wasn't ranked. It was one of the best teams in the country, loaded with pros. Beat them in overtime in the Sweet 16. Then Arkansas beat 13th ranked Virginia in the Elite Eight, 4th ranked North Carolina in the Final Four semifinals. And then we know they lost to number 1, top ranked UCLA. That was the number 1 team in the country. And Arkansas lost to UCLA in the championship game. So when you add up everything, the non-conference in 94-95 was the toughest non-conference in Arkansas history. And it's going to be tough to upset that. We'll see. This one building now might be the second, and it's got a chance. Depends on how they finish it. Might be the best, but it's going to be tough to supersede that one. And then the other thing, so then when you add in these mega matchups in league play, and then just the gauntlet Arkansas had in the NCAA tournament, and typically if a team plays 6 games and gets the championship game, they played some really good teams, especially at the back end of that. You see a lot more upsets now in the tournament than you did back then. But when you put it all together, it was just a brutal schedule for a team defending its title. And Arkansas, again, 32-7. They lost 4 in-league games, only 1 non-conference game, and then losing to Kentucky obviously in the finals of the SEC tournament. Um, and then UCLA in the title game. And that was an absolute gauntlet. And then this schedule, because of how good the SEC is, that SEC was good. It's not as good as this one. And we'll see how good Arkansas is. But let's say Arkansas makes it to a Final Four. Let's just throw that out there. There's a chance, but that by combination of the non-conference games, how good the SEC is, and how many of those teams are ranked, and how often Arkansas plays ranked quad one level teams in the SEC. I mean, last year it was just every game was basically against a ranked opponent and a quad one win opportunity. But if you package everything and you make a run in the NCAA tournament, there's a chance that when you add it all up, that this upcoming season could offer in totality the toughest schedule in school history. Again, it's going to be really hard to do more heavy lifting than that 94-95 team did. But anyway, that's the comparison, and that's what the standard is. That's the gold standard if you're going to make the case this is the toughest non-conference schedule in history, you better bring a lunch and know what you're talking about. Because I think there's some younger folks out there that's going to think immediately, oh, this is it. Well, tune in, because this is what it's up against. All right, 26 minutes in. We're going to try to wrap up here pretty quickly. I've just got a few notes to talk about when it comes to recruiting here today. And let's do that really quick. I've been speaking a lot about class of 2026 big man Arafan Diane, a 7'1", 285-pound center. Have mentioned the fact that Arkansas has been pursuing him for a while. We reported his Arkansas offer back in July. He told me of last year, he told me that Calipari offered him. Remember, Calipari flew into Iowa United Prep, where he plays high school, and showed up in person to check on him last year. Arkansas coaches have obviously been courtside during the live evaluation opportunities this spring. That included the Adidas 3SSB event in Council Bluffs, Iowa back in May. They were on hand again to see him at the MBPA Top 100 camp just a few days ago. But he officially reported, he put out a logo, the Razorback logo, yesterday. He finally officially reported his Arkansas offer. So, and it's one of those things, I'm blessed to receive an offer for Arkansas. What's interesting about that is not only did he tell me that he'd been offered by Calipari in Arkansas back in July of last year, but Arkansas's coaching staff confirmed that offer. So if you're looking at that and thinking he just got offered, I think what's happened is he did not release a lot of his offers like a lot of kids do, using the graphic and it's so that it's on their X account timeline. Early on, some of his offers were just being reported by folks like me and maybe some other national reporters. And only lately has he really started to kind of roll out some of these offers with the logos. Now, he has picked up a ton of offers lately, but 2 or 3 of these are a little older, actually, are quite a bit older, and he's just now getting around to putting them out. I guess someone told him, you ought to do this and, puff your chest out and put that on your. So I think that's one of those things. Again, he's had that offer for a while, but he just personally put it out Saturday. But along with offers from Kansas and Houston have rolled out. Teams that were formerly Pac-12 that are now Big Ten. Oregon and Arizona now in the Big 12. Those were offers that were just reported for him. He's already had, in Purdue. We mentioned UConn and Danny Hurley had recently offered him. Iowa has offered him. Indiana has offered him. He is snowball rolling all these high major, big time blue blood type of offers. And we've been speaking highly of him. He's the number 1 rated center, according to 247 Sports. He's ranked 22nd or 23rd overall, according to 247 Sports. But Arafan Diane, Iowa United Prep, and he plays for 17U Iowa United on the Adidas 3SSB circuit. But he really had a really outstanding showing at MBPA Top 100 camp. I've been on these last few segments speaking on his stats and some of the performances, teaming up with J.J. Andrews, the Arkansas commitment. And I think Diane is a guy that he's already told me he's going to visit Arkansas in September. Keep an eye on this one because everybody's after him. Arkansas has been recruiting him for quite a while. And it's John Calipari. And again, 7'1", 285. And I've made comparisons to a raw, young Joel Embiid. His guardian has compared him to the Joker. And uh, look, it's a stretch to say that now based on the quality of those players where they are now. But if you look at it same stage, this kid's got all the soft skills. He can score, he can shoot, even out to the 3-point line. He's a good passer. And his motor, that's what one of the things Arkansas's coaching staff has raved about, is just his motor. So for a guy that size that moves as well as he does and has the soft skills, you understand why all of these programs now are all over him. So keep an eye on that. June 15th, every year is the deadline. It's the date where at midnight, 12:01 a.m., when the clock strikes to move the calendar to June 15th, that is always the marker for when Division I head coaches can now make direct contact with recruits that are coming into their junior seasons of high school when school starts. So class of 2027. And so Arkansas and John Calipari's staff have already started reaching out to some of the top level 5-star guys in class of 2027. Number 1 ranked 5-star Baba Oladotun, a 6'9" combo forward out of Silver Springs, Maryland. Arkansas coaches reached out to him. I got to watch him play in Memphis, as did Calipari and Chin Coleman back in May during that live eval session on the Nike EYBL circuit. But as the number 1 player in the country, Baba is a 6'9" combo forward that Arkansas just reached out to on June 15th. National number 4 5-star, same class 2027, Marcus Spears Jr., a 6'7" forward. You know that name. His dad, Marcus Spears, was an LSU, a great, I think, defensive lineman. Maybe what was the era? But he was a defensive lineman and an All-American at LSU, and then was most of his NFL career was with the Dallas Cowboys. But Marcus Spears Jr., another player out of Dynamic Prep, one of those really good independent basketball schools in Dallas, Texas. And then class of 2027 as well, number 14th ranked 5-star Tyrone Jemison, a 6'2" lead guard at Calvary Baptist in Shreveport, Louisiana. So those were 3 of the names that Arkansas coaches reached out to again after that strike of midnight to move into the June 15th where that's allowed. And this is reporting, by the way, on those 3 players that came from Deshaun London, who's a national recruiting analyst, I think, for 27 Sports. I think that's who he's with. But that's it. That's where we are today. Almost 33 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. We're going to keep an eye on the scheduling stuff. I suspect we'll be talking a lot more about it because, again, there's more non-conference opponents. Can't wait to see who that Dallas opponent's going to be. Can't wait to see the conference matchups and who the round-robin home and aways are, and then who are just the one-off home games, the one-off road games. So got a lot to talk about there. Going to talk a little bit more another day about the exhibition season, the charity exhibition, because I got a really cool nugget I think everybody's going to like about the one that I won't say got away, but you all would have loved for it to happen. I got a little info on that one. And we'll also obviously be monitoring recruiting, and as well as does Arkansas with 14 players now for this current roster, one more they can add. The last time I was on, I spoke about the fact that I believe Arkansas is going to pursue adding one more. It doesn't mean they will. They don't have to. They're not in an emergent situation where they need to add one more, but it would be nice if they could. And it could run the gamut. It could be a back-end piece, effectively a walk-on type of player to get to 15 and have just one more body for practice, locker room dynamics, all that stuff. Is it someone that's another developmental piece? They added a couple of those recently, I think more developmental than guys you expect to see in year 1 on the court, really playing a consistent role, but we'll see. Or is it a guy that can plug in and be your 9th guy and give you another true 9-man, 2-deep rotation like you had a year ago? The odd man out, or the one that you're slotting in there with a Duke Thero gone at the 4 would be a 4. And we keep saying Igor Rizov, who Arkansas, I've confirmed from the Arkansas side of things, absolutely has been pursuing him, but there are snags and hiccups with his visa and things that could really delay that. And it then becomes, does Arkansas leave that spot open to see what plays out with him? Or maybe it's someone else they move on to, or again, they just add another totally back-end piece that's effectively a walk-on type, or do they leave it open and see what happens by midterm? There's multiple ways they can go. I just know from talking to the staff that they're looking at options to still add one, and not cutting it off to, okay, we're just done. So doesn't mean they will. I just went through some of the hows and whys and timeframes on that, but that they're open to it. All right. Once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's been Kevin McPherson. It's been fun. It's been Monday morning early. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't already. Again, if something is really pressing, something important, especially a player ad at this point, or any other thing that needs to be talked about, we'll break back in later today. If not, we'll be back on tomorrow. But I want to thank all of you for being here. We appreciate you. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.